Before we kick off today's video, we at SlatRock want to say that while we're known for covering details in every news, last night was a bumper night of wrestling with NXT and AEW Dynamite. With that in mind, please pardon us if we miss any of the greater details, and with that in mind, here's your latest fix of wrestling news. We're starting off today with Raw, and for the first time since July 2012, this week's show was a 2-hour show, which will be the case for the remainder of the year. On the post-Bad Blood press conference, Triple H admitted that he didn't know how long Raw will be after the move to Netflix, and now we know more about the backstage reaction to the change. Fightful Select reports that there were some growing pains this week as WWE tried to fit their weekly 3-hour show into 2 hours, but this wasn't an impossible task. After all, SmackDown has been 2 hours since its launch in 1999, so working around a 2-hour time limit for Raw wasn't as difficult as some had first expected. The biggest frustration with the show centered around a 10-woman tag team match, which saw Lyra Valkyria, Natalya, Zelina Vega, Katana Chance, and Kaden Carter defeat Pure Fusion Collective and the Unholy Union. Clocking in at around 7 minutes, the frustration with the match stems from the booking, the perceived lack of direction for the talent, and a commercial consuming much of the bout. This is an unfortunate side effect of Raw losing an hour, and hopefully WWE can show that this week's poor booking for its women was a one-off and not a sign of things to come. With the Wrestling Observer reporting that SmackDown could move to 3 hours on USA, these are times of huge changes for WWE, and we'll have to see how Raw fares after this week's frustrations. On Raw, CM Punk shared that he was feeling the worst he's ever felt after his war with Drew McIntyre at Bad Blood, and shared that he'd be going away for a while. On Instagram, WWE shared a video of Punk after his segment, which saw him walking very slowly and struggling to make his way to the back, obviously in pain. Punk won his Hell in a Cell match, but will need some time off to recover. But is there another reason why CM Punk will not be appearing for WWE for the immediate future? According to Fightful Select, CM Punk is not expected to appear at the upcoming Crown Jewel event, and the segment he gave on Raw would explain his absence. With that said, Punk has always been clear about his stance when it comes to WWE's partnership with Saudi Arabia, and spoke openly against the deal before his 2023 return. In 2020, Punk even told The Miz to go suck a blood money covered gin Saudi Arabia, you fiend dork, after the A-lister's appearance on WWE Backstage. While The Miz shared this year that the pair have since made amends, Punk's view on WWE's Saudi deal is crystal clear, and don't expect him to have any role at Crown Jewel next month. Do you respect CM Punk for sticking to his convictions and not taking part in Crown Jewel next month? Share your thoughts in the comments. Trick Williams opened up NXT after a recap of last week's premiere on the CW, but Wes Lee interrupted from the crowd and called his shot to become a Triple Crown NXT champion. Intercontinental champion Jey Uso arrived to a thunderous ovation and yeet chant, and he and Trick celebrated with dueling yeet and whoop that trick chants while Lee disappeared. This was a bizarre segment as Lee stepping up to the NXT champion was overshadowed by the arrival of Jey, whose appearance amounted to nothing but a crowd pop as Lee shuffled away. Jey is one of the hottest stars in WWE, however his appearance accomplished little beyond setting up the potential viral question, who else might appear for the silver brand? Trick versus Lee is an exciting possibility for Halloween Havoc, but after his brutal win over Zachary Wentz, it would have made a bigger impact for Lee to get physical with Trick straight away. Who do you think will step up as Trick Williams' next challenger? Is there any option besides Wes Lee? Let us know in the comments below. Before the promo of NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, Giulia found an old friend backstage, and it wasn't long before fans learned who that would be. 1 week after retaining her title, Perez mocked the crowd for underestimating her before bringing out Cora Jade, who said their friendship was mending thanks to Perez's new attitude. Giulia arrived, followed quickly by Stephanie Vaquer, making the latter's first physical appearance in NXT, and the pair charged the ring and cleared out Perez and Jade. This was the old friend that Giulia was referring to, and while the pair do have a history in the ring, they have limited experience teaming together. It was nice to see Vaquer in person, but NXT is playing a dangerous game, immediately tying the new top women in NXT together for the time being. Giulia has gotten significantly better presentation than Vaquer since arriving in NXT, from debuting in a PLE to standing in front of Vaquer when she finally arrived. This has made Vaquer look like something of a sidekick to Giulia, though this could change drastically if Vaquer wins the NXT Women's Championship. Before that though, Vaquer needs a chance to establish herself on her own merit, since this is not going to be a tag team for the long term. Both Giulia and Vaquer grabbed the NXT Women's Championship, clearly establishing that one of them would be the next champion and already teasing tensions in their alliance. Jade and Perez were able to talk around why they're working together, but the easiest answer was to simply say it's pro wrestling and heel turns often lead to rivals becoming allies. It's interesting though that the former NXT Tag Champions were not willing to say they're friends again, but only that they are working on it. Are newcomers like Giulia and Stephanie booked properly? How differently would you have booked them this week? Sound off in the comments. Backstage, Ren Sinclair claimed the first shot at Vaquer next week. Charlie Dempsey also told Lexis King to challenge Oro Mensah to a rounds match. Tony D'Angelo threw everything he could at Oba Femi, but the ruler kept kicking out. But when Femi popped back up ready to win, the Don reversed into a sunset flip for the pin. Femi found an incredible rival in D'Angelo that gave him two of his best matches in his career to date, with this bout earning its "This is awesome" chant from the crowd. While it may not have been as technically complete as their No Mercy showdown, this was the more emotional match and also had the better story in the build to the match. The Don had been selling why he needed to win this bout when it looked like Femi was not going to lose anytime soon just a couple of weeks back. Tony's upset was easily one of, if not the best babyface moment NXT has delivered in 2024, and we're including Trick Williams' NXT title win from last week. This was a home run from start to finish as the Don finally holds one of NXT's top men's titles, since the Heritage Cup he had previously held seems to be a lower card focus for NXT's roster. The trick now will be to keep Femi hot, and if NXT plays its cards right, the ruler could very well be the one to dethrone Trick Williams without anyone batting an eye. But what did you make of this match? Was Tony D'Angelo the right man to end the longest NXT North American title reign in history? Or was there somebody better? Let us know down below. For years, Roman Reigns ruled WWE as the undisputed WWE champion, and while he no longer holds that gold, he still carries considerable sway, both on-screen and backstage. According to Ibu of Wrestle Purists, Roman possesses significant influence and was essentially able to decide that the Bloodline would retain their titles in last week's ladder match. While Reigns may oppose the Bloodline on TV, he wanted Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa to win last Friday, and WWE were more than willing to give the top star exactly what he wanted. In August, Bronson Reed made an impact by crushing Seth Rollins with 6 Tsunami finishers, writing off Rollins for close to 2 months in a career-defining performance by Reed. Speaking on the Insight podcast, Reed shared that the original plan was significantly less, and that it was a last-minute call by Triple H for the attack to go down the way it did. That clearly worked out for Reed, who has been a featured name on Raw ever since his attack on Rollins, as the game's creative vision is paying off big time for the Australian powerhouse. Sexy Red was at WWE NXT to perform a concert, and while Ethan Page tried to cancel that, Javon Evans cleared him out and posed with the artist. Randy Orton made the young OG wait, then showed his veteran experience by slowing and grounding the high flyer, and while Evans fought back, he got caught with an RKO. After the match, Orton raised Evans' hand in a show of respect, but for all the buzz this match had received in the build-up, this match felt slightly off from start to finish. It never felt like the Viper found his pace with Evans, and it led to many awkward moments where Orton just waited for Evans to hit his next springboard. The most anticipated RKO was a complete botch, which NXT wisely opted not to show in a replay, and Orton called an audible and hit his standard RKO for the win. Even after the match, Evans can be heard saying, "I'm so sorry," and while Orton told him, "You're okay, you're the man," it's telling that Javon instantly knew things hadn't gone as hoped. These issues were always a risk when putting a newcomer like Evans in a big spot so early in his career, but this was the most he struggled, which may be down to not clicking with Orton. Hopefully a rematch down the line will land better, closer to the match promised on paper, and maybe they can also nail the connection on the RKO. We often hear that matches are sink or swim for talent, and while that's typically followed by claims that the young star swam when given the opportunity, this doesn't feel like that. Following the match, however, Ava announced a triple threat match for next week with a shot at the NXT title on the line, which will see Evans versus Ethan Page versus Wes Lee. That may seem odd given Evans lost his match this week, and are you expecting a rematch between the young OG and the Legend Killer? Let us know down in the comments. AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday opened with Jon Moxley, who cut a scathing promo about Bryan Danielson, claiming that Bryan had been looking for someone who can end his career. Moxley declared himself that man and said that Danielson will embrace his dark side as his world closes around him this weekend when they battle at WrestleDream. Moxley added that Bryan will come to understand that it's gotta be this way, and vowed that there won't be enough people in Washington to stop what he needs to do in their match. It was interesting that Moxley leaned into the idea that he doesn't want to do what he's doing, and we'll have to see where that leads both this Saturday and in the weeks to come. Will Ospreay and Don Callis had a confrontation that turned physical, and Konosuke Takeshita attacked Ospreay until Kyle Fletcher arrived to try and play peacemaker. Ricochet ended up saving Ospreay, and this was all build up to the triple threat international title match at WrestleDream between Ospreay, Ricochet, and Takeshita. The main event tag team match of Dynamite started 10 minutes before the start of the hour, with Danielson and Castagnoli squaring off for their respective teams. As expected, this was a high-impact fight as tensions remained palpable over Danielson being betrayed, and he and Wheeler Yuta went hard until the BCC took over. Castagnoli was hesitant to attack Yuta, but Pac didn't have the same issue, and Wheeler spent a long time in the ring after the AEW World Champion sold an injury. Moxley showed up and distracted Danielson when he had control, but Danielson and Yuta still won, and after the match, Bryan set his sights on the man he'll face in Tacoma. Danielson attacked Moxley and their brawl spilled to the backstage area, leaving Yuta alone with Pac, Castagnoli, and Marina Shafir. Pac and Shafir attacked Yuta, but Claudio called them off, only for him to hit Yuta with a hammer while his allies restrained the former ROH Pure Champion. Danielson came back to the ring with a staggered Moxley, who was rescued by Shafir, and also took out Castagnoli with a Boo Psycho kick to make the save for Wheeler Yuta. The AEW World Champion was standing tall as Dynamite went off the air, in a great way to end Title Tuesday and push towards the pay-per-view. At AEW WrestleDream, Swerve Strickland will make his return to TV in his first appearance since the brutal loss he received at All Out at the hands of Hangman Page. It's fitting that Swerve's return will come in his hometown of Tacoma, Washington, and while he hasn't been on TV, MVP has shown an interest in managing the former world champion. In his debut at Grand Slam, MVP said he wanted to talk business with Strickland and handed his business card to Prince Nana and brought in Shelton Benjamin as his associate last week. It was on Dynamite that AEW announced Strickland's return at WrestleDream, and on Twitter, Swerve teased that he will be talking business with MVP, stating, "Let's talk business." It'll be interesting to see if Strickland takes on the services of MVP, as a new manager could be what Swerve thinks he needs to get his career back on track after all that's happened. Ahead of Swerve's return at WrestleDream, AEW aired a video package about him on Dynamite, which showed the former world champion training for his comeback. The video also showed MVP's interaction with Nana from Grand Slam, and this all comes amid reports that Bobby Lashley will be joining AEW very soon. If AEW has plans to debut Lashley this month, then WrestleDream may be the perfect time, as he could be MVP's answer if Strickland refuses to dump Nana for him. A Lashley-Strickland feud would be an epic way for the Almighty to arrive in AEW, and don't be surprised if this week's video was a tease of what's to come. The Learning Tree spoke with Rocky Romero backstage before we went back to the ring to see Jay White return to action by competing in a squash match. After a couple of minutes, White got the win and said he predicts Hangman Adam Page will come for him, which is exactly what he wants. White issued a challenge to Page to face him this Saturday at AEW WrestleDream and said that after dealing with the Cowboy, he'll take revenge on Christian Cage. Cage would cost White his match in the Owen Hart tournament, and on Dynamite, White added that once the matter's resolved, he'll set his sights on the AEW World Championship. White returned to AEW TV last week by saving Juice Robinson from being hung by the Cowboy, and expect a brutal feud between the Switchblade and the Cowboy very soon. In an interview with Renee Paquette, Mercedes Moné hyped up her TBS and New Japan Strong Women's titles match with Emi Sakura, saying she'd dethrone another queen. This wasn't just a nod to Sakura's nickname, but a nod to WWE's Charlotte Flair, who is known as the Queen and who has feuded with Moné both in NXT and on WWE's main roster. With both titles on the line, Moné traded chops with Sakura for a long time, and the match was relatively even until the CEO took the Queen out at ringside. Camille's presence was a factor, but most of this was a clean match with the champion and challenger both looking good and developing chemistry right away. Moné was able to win to retain her titles, but she and Camille were about to attack when Chris Statlander showed up to make the save. Backstage, Hook reflected on the attack on his father that took place before last week's Dynamite, which forced Taz to miss the 5-year anniversary of the show. After a run-in with Kip Sabian, Hook came face-to-face with Christian Cage this week, who sympathized with Hook, noting that Killswitch is out with a serious medical issue. Christian then mentioned how he sympathized with the loss of a father, and it's no secret that Cage has a habit of bringing up the fathers of his rivals during his feuds. Perhaps this segment was part of Cage's tactic of recruiting Hook to his faction, as he may look to provide a fatherly presence to the cold-hearted handsome devil in Taz's absence. Taz has since undergone full knee replacement surgery, and what did you make of this segment? Was Cage the one behind the attack? Share your thoughts down below. The Title Tuesday edition of Dynamite saw the return of Daniel Garcia, who spoke about how much he's missed the fans. Garcia also declared that he's staying in AEW, calling it where the best wrestlers in the world wrestle, putting to bed reports and rumors he'd be jumping to WWE. There's no word yet on the terms of the deal, but he also announced that he's coming for everyone who holds title gold in AEW, as fans can expect this new chapter in AEW to see him in the ring with champions. Britt Baker and Willow Nightingale were set to go one-on-one, with the winner earning a women's world title match at Wrestle Dream, but this match was changed for Dynamite. Due to illness, Baker was unable to work this match, so it was turned into a fatal four-way with Willow, Saraya, Nyla Rose, and Jamie Hayter. All four women seemed a little unsure at times, likely due to a lack of prep time, and the more people you add to an impromptu match, the more the flow will suffer. The longer it went though, the better it got, but it was not to notice how awkward some moments were during the first half of the contest. After Hayter chased Penelope Ford away, it came down to Saraya and Willow, and after surviving Saraya's finisher, Willow scored the win to earn a shot against Mariah May at Wrestle Dream. Dynamite featured an explosive confrontation between Brody King and Darby Allin as the two traded intense words ahead of their match this Saturday at Wrestle Dream. Allin spoke about their humble beginnings and staying in rundown hotels with the dream of making it to TV, and took credit for helping King land a spot in AEW. Allin, not one to shy away from boasting, said that helping King make it to AEW allowed King's father to retire, something Allin has done for his own father, and called himself the face of AEW. King shot back, calling Allin his own worst enemy, and took aim at Darby's plan to climb Mount Everest, saying that if he dies on the mountain, Allin's father will be forced to return to work. The tensions boiled over into a physical brawl, and Allin got the upper hand before striking King with a rock, causing Brody to bleed from his mouth before security intervened. Mark Briscoe delivered a very serious promo and promised to hurt Chris Jericho ahead of their ROH World Championship match at Wrestle Dream. Jericho has tried to play mind games with Mark, even saying that Jay was always the better of the pair, and will Jericho's trash talk result in a title change? Time will tell. In the most athletic match of the night, Hologram defeated Commander and rightly earned a standing ovation in a match that harkened back to the days of WCW's Cruiserweight division. Back to NXT as Nikita Lyons made her return to the brand this week after being sidelined since January due to a knee injury. For her return to TV, Lyons interrupted a heated segment between Lola Vice and NXT General Manager Ava, and while this was her comeback on TV, she's already made her return to the ring. That came at an NXT live event on September 27th, and with the Lioness back, she is ready to resume her journey towards capturing championship gold. What do you think about Nikita Lyons' return to NXT? Who would you like to see her face next? Share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. Fatal Influence tried to keep Kalani Jordan isolated, but once she was able to tag in Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, the match slipped away from the heels. Jasmine Nix was thrown around before taking the split-legged moonsault for the loss, and this was a fun opener that had the crowd loud, especially for the women's tag team champions. WWE brought some A-level talent to NXT this week, but it was Belair's talent that jumped off the screen in a way that few can replicate, as she was levels above all others in the ring. It was inevitable that Fatal Influence would lose, but once again, NXT protected Fallon Henley as the most dangerous threat to Lani as Women's North American Champion. With Belair and Cargill heading back to SmackDown now, Fatal Influence should use this opening to shift the momentum back to their favor before challenging for the gold. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller struggled to stay in sync, and Nathan Frazier and Axiom took advantage, and a Spanish Fly Phoenix Splash combo saw the champs pick up a dominant win. As main roster talent, A-Town Down Under on paper should have been a real threat to Fraxium, but this was more one-sided than expected, as Theory and Waller sold their inability to keep up. That didn't take away from the quality of the title match. In fact, it was refreshing to see Fraxium move past their own twice-a-match miscues and instead just focus on their show stealer. This was the best tag team effort from A-Town Down Under in a while, and much of it was down to the efforts of the champions, who may be the best tag team in NXT when on point. After a pre-taped back-and-forth promo, Ridge Holland tried to deliver a further warning to Chase U, and Riley Osborne attacked him from behind. Holland has waged a one-man war with Chase U, though his motivations still aren't exactly crystal clear, and it does feel like this angle is more about just giving people something to do. And that was NXT and AEW Dynamite, and what did you make of these shows? Which do you feel was the better event? Share your thoughts below, and thanks for watching.